the Trump administration facing a scandal today because President Trump has been ousting appointees to the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, some of them Jewish Americans with a record and ties to these important historical matters, basically because they happen to be Democrats and were previously appointed by President Biden. That includes DNC Chair Tom Perez, Susan Rice, Doug Emhoff, who, of course, is the former second gentleman. The Times says this comes a week after the observance of Holocaust Remembrance Day, a complicated time for American Jews. Some worry Trump is weaponizing what are genuine fears about anti-Semitism, which, of course, has remained a problem throughout world history, but politicizing that. In other words, rather than caring about anti-Semitism, trying to use it to score cheap political points, quote, for political purposes, the Times writes. Emhoff, who is a Jewish American, says, quote, Holocaust remembrance and education should never be politicized. To turn one of the worst atrocities in history into a wedge issue is dangerous. Mark, your thoughts on what is yet another beyond the pale move there at something that's supposed to be above politics, a U.S. government institution related to memorializing the horrors of the Holocaust?
Yeah, I mean, you could say that the sort of the basic decency piece of this, that was sort of thrown into the garbage like in the first term throughout. I mean, Donald Trump has a permission structure from his base. We learned that early on. I see this as on the continuum of that. And I do think that I'm a little surprised. I was a little, I mean, I do think it's sort of eye-opening, and you mentioned this before, that on some of the conduct around immigration and you know, kicking people out of the country, essentially. The allies here, the Alex Joneses, the Joe Rogans, the others, I mean, I was a little surprised to see that. And it gets to a sort of, you know, a very kind of old school way of just due process, which we have seen is quite selective in some cases here. But no, I mean, I don't think this helps him. I don't think it's ever helped him. And I think it's part of what makes his approval ratings traditionally quite low when he is president. I don't think it helps him now, especially when he's vulnerable to other things that he could always fall back on, such as the economy.
Yeah, and in essence, he looks at something like the Holocaust and sees it as a chance to score cheap political points. And I guess that raises a question for anyone around him, which is, okay, you might support XYZ about it, but do you have the ability to stand up to something like this? Or maybe people don't.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, certainly, I mean, the people that matter here are the elected Republicans who presumably know better. This story is as old as the Trump domination of the party, which is going on 9 years now. But yeah, they're very, again, very selective about this. You know, the obvious anti-Semitic undertones to this. I mean, it does sort of, you know, when you put this side by side to Donald Trump's basically attack on so many major universities over anti-Semitism, it does sort of make you wonder, I mean, does he really care about this? I mean, I have my suspicions that he doesn't. But yeah, I mean, first of all, also, when you look at the contradictions involved inherent to this, it does look sort of like a piece of the chaos. It also looks like a distraction, again, from what people, I think, are more focused on, which is their pocketbooks.
Right, and we've definitely seen that the economic environment is affecting that. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear if you're weaponizing the genuine discussion around anti-Semitism around the world, including in pockets of the United States, or the Holocaust for political points, then by definition, you don't really care about the underlying issue or memorializing the Holocaust. That's sort of the problem with politicizing an institution like that.